So I'm going to try to show you how I use Knime to import monsters from my source workbooks into Obsidian as markdown files. I store everything in a number of workbooks. I have them separated out by source. So I have the Monster Manual 2, Fiend Folio. I have a few others that I've set up over the years. But keeping them all separate helps me make sure I know where I got them from, and just keeps things organized for me. In my workbook, I have all of the standard columns that come out. Mine won't be the same as yours, most likely. I mean, the normal stuff will, if you're using first edition, then the standard stats, frequency, number of pairing, armor class, that sort of thing. I've added in some columns for aliases. I've found that in some cases they give monsters lots of different names. And I also put in plural variations so that if I'm referencing the plural in a text, that it can find that tag. I also include in the source book itself where I got it from, what page, and then some other info that helps me tag it appropriately inside wherever I'm using it from. And I also include the image. I started doing that in the Realmworks time frame because the awesome importer tool was able to use that and bring the images right into Realmworks, which was a lot easier than doing it manually, and I'm leveraging that as well. I also have a number of ecology articles depending on the monster. So I have in here, I put a reference to the PDF where that came from. This one doesn't have any, but I do have some out there in my real vault. So this is just an example of the layout. If I figure out where I'm going to put all this stuff for you guys to be able to play with, I'll put this demo up there somewhere. At any rate, so that's the way that's set up. The way that I have my templates set up, I won't spend lots of time on this because your templates will vary from mine. For the overall folder note template, I just show the name of it. I have a placeholder for the parent. This is going to get replaced. All of my placeholders, I surround in tildes because that's a very rare character for people to use. And that way, it's something I can kind of safely look for. And then I do a data view query to show all of the children of what this parent node is going to be. And then I put out a stat link, a stat block to show just kind of like the inline text stats, kind of a very terse version. I really wanted this to be my inline block, but I couldn't figure out how to get that to work. So I'm doing it this way instead. If I can get that to work, then I'll change that. The actual monster block is right here. And it's just, a standard template. I put all of the stuff that I'm going to bring in into the front matter. You could also do it in line, but coming from kind of a SQL background, I like having it all in one place. I'm trying to avoid code reuse and duplication of effort. Some places I haven't been able to avoid that, particularly like the image here and having to put the image here as well. But overall, I'm trying to only store the value in one place. If I put in 3 attacks per round, and then I put that text here as 3 attacks per round, and then I put that text here, 3 attacks per round. If something changed, I'd have to edit it 3 times. Here, I just have to edit it once. So we bring in, we get our name, we get our image, we get our description. This is Josh's awesome way of doing images. I like that, so I stole that. And then I make an admonitions block for kind of my verbose stats. And that's also got a link to the full monster entry. I have additional stats for where it came from. And then this is the inline block. This is kind of the convention of old modules that would say, you know, as the party opens the door, they are attacked by 3 goblins. And then they put this little stat block in there. So that's what this is use cases for. And then I add this data view block, which is essentially the same as from the folder note. And the reason I do that is some instances they'll have, like, say, Umber Hulk, and then they'll give all the stats for an Umber Hulk. Then they'll say there's a Marine variety that does this. And so that will be a child in my setup. And so this will show all of those child varieties or alternate varieties of a monster as a child. So anyway, that's the templates right there. And let's get into Knime. So Knime is right here. It's a workflow processor. It does a lot of really interesting things. I've only scratched the surface. We're going to use this to set up our environment, do some housekeeping, and then we're going to copy our image files into the asset folder. We're going to process the workbook. This will take all of the sheets, combine them into one, make one big master list, and then it will write out all of the folder notes. And then once the folder notes are written, then it will go ahead and it will look and write out all of the individual monster files. So yeah, let me make sure that's an important point here. If we're looking at one of these monsters, one of excuse me, one of the key things that we need is the parent folder. This tells Knime where on Earth this thing is going to live. For the main monsters, you know, the one-offs, it's just like an alpha ABCD, and I'm getting that. It's just a very simple, give me the first character of the creature name. For the children, it's a little bit more complicated. We're getting the first character of the sheet name, and then we're appending the name of the sheet to the end of it. And so this way, you know, we'll have all the different cats underneath C and dragons under D, etc., etc. This only works for one level at this point. I'm not doing things like E elemental, para elemental, quasi elementals, that sort of thing. I'm only doing it at one level. If somebody wants to go that far, they can do that. I didn't find that necessary. Anyway, once we've processed all the monsters, I then give this neat little pop-up that just tells me everything is all done and I can go check stuff out. So looking at my demo vault, which is right here, it's pretty well empty. I do have one image in there for, I use this as a placeholder, so that if I don't have an image for a monster, like there's a few in here that I don't have images for, then this shows up. I found this silhouette out in the wild and I just dumped a question mark in front of it, kind of grayed it out a little bit, so it's just kind of a generic placeholder. What I've got here is I've got a variation of my data view template just to show all of the lists in the whole monster, or all of the monsters in the whole vault when that runs. This is based on the folder note template, but you know, again, your mileage may vary. You may not want that there. You may want something else. This is just what I'm doing. But as you can see, I have nothing else here. So let's go ahead and run this. What you'll see right now is that I have nothing in the monster vault, and I have no images other than that missing image. But as soon as we run this, things are going to start populating relatively quickly. So there we, now I only have probably about 30 or 40 monsters in here, so this is going to run in about a minute. The full load that I have for all 3 books takes probably about 3 to 4 minutes per. So, you may find that, it runs a while, but for you, depending on your load. But, you don't have to do it all that often, so it doesn't really matter a whole lot. Just keep in mind it's not going to be instantaneous. Okay, so we've loaded our first set of monsters. And if we go look at the vault now, we now see there's a bunch of monsters in here. Notice I don't have a picture for aerial servants, but the awesome axe beak is sitting right there. And then it's reaching into the subfolders and showing us everything out there. I want to do some group by stuff in there, but I haven't quite figured that out yet, and I don't know why. But that's a topic for another time. So if we expand out, we can see we've got monsters here. Each one is going to be broken down like this. Or, you can obviously navigate it this way as well. But then if we go to the monster, now we've got our show to players here. Now you'll notice here slightly that my picture is on the left on this side, but it's on the right on this side. That's because I'm doing a little randomization trick inside Knime, so that I just wanted to check the variation. I haven't decided which one I like more yet, so having it happen just kind of randomly just gives me a little bit of a variety that I kind of like at the moment. So there's the classic beholder picture. It looks really goofy, but I like it. And then you'll notice that I've got an ecology article here for this guy that came from Dragon Magazine, which is right there. So, so yeah, that goes right out to those. And then if we look here for dragons, this has the general article on dragons in it. All of this stuff came out of the Excel workbook. So, all of this information was in the workbook, including the text for the admonition, the table text, all that stuff I dropped into Excel. And it's kind of one of the reasons that I like using Excel for this, because I think that if I'd have used a CSV, I would have had a bunch of problems kind of formatting the things correctly for multi-line and all of that. I also have dice references in here. Like there's one right there, so that when it's saying there's a chance that things will happen, kind of standard stuff. It'll give you that dice roll, and then I need to figure out a way to pull that stat block as well. But again, a little outside. But you can see more additional information, and then here's the children of this dragon entry, so it shows me each individual one. Now, an important thing to note here is that I have an option in here to whether or not to overwrite my folder notes. Excuse me, that would be like the dragon file or the A file or what have you, and whether or not to overwrite monsters. This is so that the main entry for dragons from the first edition Monster Manual doesn't get overwritten by the dragon entry in this Monster Manual 2, because or from Fiend Folio or another one, right? So if you decide that you want that overwritten, you can just turn that on, then it will overwrite. But let's go ahead and set this to the second one, and then we will run this. Now you'll note that I have an overwrite here, and this is a Boolean. And so I also have an overwrite over here. I have those two other overwrites in here that are strings. You might be wondering why they're split out like that. That's because of Knime itself. One of the operations that I do in here is I check those variables, and I use what's called a Java snippet node to do that. The problem is the Java snippet node does not understand Booleans. So you cannot reference a Boolean value inside the Java snippet. So I had to make them strings. I started out by doing that in this node right here. But then the Java snippet also had an issue where it didn't like processing the string value when set in the variable creator. But if I set the variable inside the variable expression node here, then it liked it. It seems to be an odd quirk of the Knime nodes. So I'm running with it. That's the way it's going. Anyway, we've set ourselves to read the second second Excel workbook. So what we're going to do, well, we don't want that. Excuse me a second. We're going to go ahead and we're going to run this, and we're going to have more monsters starting to show up. Notice the aboleth just kicked in, aspis, azures have shown up. Our nodes are growing too. I like this thing. The graph view is really awesome. Anyway, these nodes are running. And one note about the console spew is Knime is very, very noisy. It seems to go to validate a node, then execute a node. And if during validation a value isn't there yet, it complains, but then it processes and sees the value, and so it's fine. So it's a little hard to visually parse the things that are important. I've done some searching for ways to turn off some of that noise. Apparently they have a lot of feature requests for that, but it's not there yet. Okay, so our second workbook has been processed, and as you can see, we've got more creatures in here. Overwrite, I've always liked him. So these guys are from Monster Manual 2, and that is all loaded. So yeah, so that's it. I'm going to be doing another video where I go into more detail on how this works, because you're going to definitely want to be coming in most likely here into this area where all of the individual line items are edited for string replacements. But I'm not going to get into that here because it's already like almost 20 minutes long. And I might be boring you guys to death. So hope you enjoy, and I will talk to you later.